What do we gain by this shift in perspective? A couple of things. First, it is clear that white seems much brighter against black, and the black appears much darker set against the white. Also, when we turn away from our small selves and toward God, both our understanding and our will become more sublime and more inclined to embrace all that is good. We would do ourselves a great disservice if we never endeavored to rise above the mud of our personalized misery. Remember how dark and noxious are the streams that flow from the soul in grave error? It's a little bit like that. If we are perpetually stuck in our own acre of tribulation, our stream will never flow free from the mire of fear and faint-heartedness. Are they looking at me or not? We would be wondering. Will everything go wrong for me if I take this path? What's a wretched little person like me doing engaging in something as lofty as prayer? Won't I be perceived as superior if I don't follow the road everyone else is on? Extremes are no good, we would reason, even extremes in virtue. And since I'm such a sinner, my fall would be even more catastrophic. Besides, I doubt I'd make any progress anyway, and I'm likely to just cause trouble to good people. Someone like me doesn't need to make herself into anything special. Oh, God help me, friends. How many souls has the spirit of evil ruined in this way? They confuse these fears with humility. These fears arise from not knowing ourselves. Fear distorts knowledge of self. What we should really be afraid of is obsessing over ourselves and never getting free of ourselves. And so I say, my friends, let us set our eyes on Christ, our good, and on his saints. That is where we will learn true humility. Then our understanding will be enhanced. Then self-knowledge will not make us timid and cowardly. Even though this is only the first dwelling of the interior castle, it is so rich and precious that the soul who can slip away from the serpents that slither in there cannot help but advance. The spirit of evil uses many nasty tricks to keep souls from knowing themselves and understanding their own paths. I speak from experience when I warn you about this first dwelling. There aren't just a few rooms, there are millions. There are many ways for the soul, with all the best intentions, to get into trouble. But the intentions of the spirit of evil are always bad. And so, in each room, legions of evil spirits have been set up to beat back souls who try to pass from one room to the next. The poor souls who do not know about this fall for 1,000 deceptions. The farther they travel away from the spirit of evil, and the nearer they approach the innermost dwelling of the beloved, the less likely they are to be tricked. But souls in these first rooms are still attached to the world, still engulfed by their own pleasures and ambitions. The faculties of sense and reason, which God gave to the soul to be of service to her, may not be strong enough to combat certain forces. Some souls could be easily conquered here, even though they may do good works and be motivated by a sincere desire not to offend the beloved. Those who find themselves in this state should turn toward His Majesty as often as possible. They should call upon the Blessed Mother and all the saints to intercede on their behalf, since the servants of their own nature lack the power to defend them. The truth is, it is necessary at every single stage to draw what we need from God. May the Beloved in His mercy give us strength. Amen. How miserable this life can be. I've gone on and on, here and elsewhere, about the ways we do damage to ourselves by failing to cultivate humility and self-awareness. Enough. Just remember, it is your most important task. Please God, may I have said something of benefit by now. You will probably notice that the light from the king's innermost chambers seemed to barely reach the first outer rooms. They are not black, as they are when the soul is darkened by a state of grave error, but the soul herself is prevented from seeing this light. Oh, I wish I knew how to explain myself. There is nothing wrong with this dwelling. It's just those nasty creatures, like serpents and vipers and poisonous reptiles, creep into the soul and do not let her perceive the radiance. It is as if a person were to go in a room filled with sunshine, but she had dirt in her eyes and could hardly open them. This dwelling is actually bright, but the soul cannot appreciate it because these wild beasts here make her close her eyes to everything but them. It is not that the soul is in a wicked state. It is that she is still so immersed in the things of the world, still so caught up in possessions or honor or business affairs, that even though she may long to gaze upon the beauty of the interior castle, all these attachments distract her from doing so. She cannot seem to extricate herself from so many entanglements. But to anyone who wishes to move ahead on the path, must try to give up necessary objects and preoccupations. If you want to reach the innermost chamber, this is your only hope. Start now. Even if you have already entered the castle, you are still in danger. Among all those venomous creatures, you cannot avoid being bitten at some point. What about people like us, friends, who have already freed ourselves from worldly attachments? What if we have already succeeded in entering deep into the secret dwellings within the castle of our souls, and then, through our own fault, turn back toward chaos? Because of our imperfections, many of us who have been blessed by God fall back into a wretched state. We may live free from certain external involvements, but may God please grant us internal freedom as well. Guard yourselves, my friends, against matters beyond your control. Remember that evil spirits battle us throughout the kingdom. It is true that in some areas, our faculties serve as protectors and are strong enough to fight for our souls. But sometimes the spirit of evil disguises itself as an angel of light to deceive us. We cannot be too careful. If we do not remain conscious, the spirit of evil will sneak in and, like silent sandpaper, will gradually cause damage in all kinds of insidious little ways we may not even realize until it's too late. For example, say the spirit of evil compels a certain sister to do endless penance. The only time she is at peace is when she is tormenting herself. Maybe the initial impulse towards self-mortification is pure, but it grows distorted. If her spiritual teacher has instructed that no one involve herself in those kinds of austerities without guidance, but the sister believes she knows better, and so engages secretly in such extremes anyway, compromising her health so that she becomes incapable of engaging in spiritual practice, then where has this seemingly good thing led her? Maybe another sister suffers from a zeal for absolute perfection. Fundamentally, this is a fine thing, but it could lead her to see every little fault in her friends as some serious transgression. She would be constantly on the lookout for other people's shortcomings, and would be running to their spiritual guide to inform them at every opportunity. This zeal could blind her to her own faults and alienate her friends, who, resentful of her tendency to criticize, may not appreciate that it arose from a worthy impulse towards perfection. Do not underestimate the spirit of evil here. Its aim is to undermine charity and cool the love the friends have for one another. This would cause serious harm. Let's understand, my friends, that true perfection means loving God and loving our neighbor. The more perfectly we keep these two commandments, the closer to perfection we will come. All spiritual rules are nothing but means toward the end of spiritual love. Forget about reckless zeal. It can do harm. Let each one of us look to herself. I do not want you to ever forget how important is the love between us. If you are going around looking at other people's faults, you might mistake insignificant things for drastic imperfections. This not only ruins your own serenity, but unnecessarily disturbs other people's peace of mind. Perfection at what price? The spirit of evil might even tempt our spiritual guides. The spirit of evil might even tempt our spiritual guides, which is all the more dangerous. Such a situation requires discretion. If the teacher herself breaks important spiritual rules, the kindest thing would be to call upon someone of higher station and prevail upon them to gently intervene. The same is true for one of the friends. Failing to deal with a problem out of fear of yielding to a negative temptation may be in itself yielding to a negative temptation. Still, it is important to remember that the spirit of evil has all kinds of tricks to deceive us. Cultivating the habit of gossip is one of them. Don't talk about each other's faults behind each other's backs. For the greatest benefit, discuss these matters face to face. Around here, glory be to God, we don't have much opportunity for harmful chatter, since we keep almost continual silence. But it is good to stay conscious of this tendency.